Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really embarking on a fascinating exploration. We're looking at some sources that kind of challenge how we usually think about success. We often measure it by things we can see: visibility, influence, maybe the size of our platform, basically fame, right?
Yeah.
But these sources, they propose something, well, quite different. Fruitfulness. What if, just imagine, God cares more about, say, your character than your platform?
That's a really powerful question to start with, and it's right at the heart of what we want to unpack today. Our sources are, well, they're rich. They draw deep wisdom from foundational biblical texts like John 15 and 1 Corinthians 3, and then they bring it to life with these really compelling stories of people who've wrestled with this exact tension. So our mission really is to pull out those core insights on character, purpose, and what truly makes for a lasting impact. Hopefully you walk away with a fresh perspective on what success genuinely means.
Okay, so let's dig into this. We're kind of wired, aren't we, to look for affirmation, applause, follower counts, that feeling of influence. But the sources suggest this, well, pretty radical reframe. Maybe real success isn't about how wide your reach is, but how deep your character goes. This whole idea that God might prioritize character over public presence. That's the big question we're wrestling with. What practical ways do these sources suggest we could even, measure this fruitfulness in our own lives? It seems less obvious than counting followers.
That's a great point. It is less obvious. And what's fascinating is that this isn't just some philosophical idea. It's deeply rooted in ancient wisdom, especially these biblical texts. This tension, between fleeting external validation and that lasting internal change, it's woven all through the sources. They argue that true fruitfulness often isn't about the stuff you see right away. It's more about what's happening inside, growing in things like love, joy, peace, patience. The fruit of the Spirit described in Galatians. Those are the things that last.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so our first big source for this deep dive is John chapter 15. This is where Jesus talks about being the true vine, right? And how we bear fruit by remaining in him.
Exactly. Jesus' words there in John 15, verses 1 to 8, they're really profound. He says, "If you abide in me, you will bear much fruit." But then there's that stark warning, "Apart from me, you can do nothing." And that word abide, menu in the Greek, it means to remain, to dwell, to stay closely connected. It's really an invitation, isn't it, to depend entirely on Christ. It underscores that our spiritual life, our vitality, it has to stay rooted in him for any real lasting growth.
Wow, that phrase, "apart from me, you can do nothing," that really hits home. The sources seem to emphasize that without Jesus, our work, no matter how big or well-meaning, just doesn't bear lasting fruit. It's even paraphrased that a branch cut off is just gathered, thrown, and burned. So even huge programs or like a massive social media presence, if it's disconnected, it could just be spiritually empty. Yeah, I think about that vine analogy. What about pruning? Lots of us feel pruned sometimes, right? When things get tough or plans fail. How do we know that's God working for fruit and not just failure?
Yeah, that's such an important question because pruning feels like cutting back, not growth. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the sources suggest God is way more concerned with healthy growth than just fast or visible growth. There's a Bible teacher who observes, in God's kingdom, growth is not measured by size, but by health. And that perspective, well, it offers a lot of comfort, actually, because it means feeling pruned when God is refining things, trimming away distractions. It's actually presented as proof you're bearing fruit, not that you're failing. It's like confirmation you're on the right vine, making you able to bear even more fruit. So the pruning, even if it hurts, is for greater fruitfulness.
Okay, so real success. It isn't about visibility, but about this deep connection and the character that grows from it. That really does flip our usual idea of success completely upside down. So instead of looking at the applause or the numbers, we should be asking, am I producing eternal fruit? Jesus says he chose us to bear fruit that will last. And yeah, cultural success can be so, flash in the pan. But Scripture celebrates faithfulness, doesn't it? Kingdom fruit isn't fast, it's faithful. That implies our goals should be lasting change, love, obedience, character, even if nobody really sees it.
Absolutely. And this naturally leads to, well, humility. Tim Keller made that observation. There's nothing more relaxing than humility. When we genuinely stop trying to prove ourselves, and just let God work through us, there's a real freedom there and a deeper capacity for fruitfulness. Christine Kane adds that true fruitfulness means becoming more like Jesus and bearing witness to the living God. And when that happens, we become less concerned with the unimportant things. It shifts our whole focus from chasing visibility to seeking Christ.
That flows really well into our next source. The Apostle Paul, he makes a similar point, doesn't he, in 1 Corinthians 3, verses 6 and 7. He's talking to the Corinthians who were arguing about which leader was better, Apollos or Paul. They were kind of caught up in personalities and human wisdom. So knowing that context, What does Paul's message mean for how we view our own efforts and, the results we see?
Right, the context is key. Paul reminds them, pretty sharply actually, that neither he who planted the church nor Apollos who came later and watered it actually caused the growth. He says, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. It's a direct challenge to their pride and their focus on human leaders. We each have a part to play, planting, watering, but only God makes things grow. It's like a farmer working the field. The farmer can water, but can't force the plant to grow. That's the miracle of life, as one source puts it. Our role is just to be faithful in whatever part God's given us.
That definitely raises the question. If success is really God's fruit, then things like jealousy or boasting about our own impact, it really is foolish, isn't it? The Bible flat out says, neither the one who plants nor the one who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. And our sources highlight that real fruitfulness happens when we are peacefully content with what God has called us to do. So peace replaces pride. We just do our part, maybe even joyfully, and leave the results to God. But, in our culture, comparison is everywhere. Ambition is praised. How do these sources suggest we actually cultivate that kind of contentment?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the sources don't really offer a quick fix, but they consistently point back to humility and a radical shift in perspective. When we genuinely accept that God's measure is his glory, not our follower count, it kind of strips away that need for self-promotion. It means we can celebrate when others succeed, seeing it as God's work instead of comparing it to ours. And yeah, that directly challenges our culture's definition of achievement. It invites us to find peace in our assignment, the one God gave us, rather than always striving for something else.
Okay, let's make this even more concrete. The sources give some really powerful real-life examples. First, there's Montel Jordan, the 90s R&B star, famous for "This is how we do it." He eventually left that huge music career to become a pastor. He said about it, "We chose marriage over music. We chose faith over fame. We wanted something that mattered." And he made this distinction between God making you famous and you making yourself famous. He basically swapped the stage lights for shepherding people, saying that matters more.
That's such a profound point Montell makes. It's not that fame itself is automatically bad, but the motive matters, right? When our goal shifts to self-glory, when we're trying to make ourselves famous, we risk disconnecting from the vine, the source of real fruit. Like Montell realized, we honor God more by just being faithful and bearing fruit in our specific calling, however small or unseen, than by piling up achievements for our own ego. His story really illustrates that John 15 idea.
Yeah, it really does. And another powerful story is from country artist Granger Smith. In 2023, he announced he was leaving the music industry, giving it up to serve full-time in his local church. And he admitted something pretty raw. He'd once told himself, basically, "I know how I'm going to glorify God my way, and I'll be rich and famous too." He saw over time how off track that thinking was.
Granger's journey, wow, it really echoes Jesus's words about self-denial, doesn't it? And Paul's point in 1 Corinthians about God giving the growth, he confessed how hard it was to deny himself, take up his cross, but ultimately he chose obedience. He said something like, I think God looks at us and says, don't tell me how I get my glory.
Yeah.
So he traded that national platform for serving his local community, just trusting God could use him for more lasting fruit right where he was planted, not where he thought he should be. It connects both principles so well.
So, okay, putting this all together,
Yeah.
what's the big takeaway for us? These stories really highlight this tension, right? We all want to make a difference, but maybe our motives matter even more than our methods. Like one commentator said, if God chose us for the work, he will exert all his power to make us fruitful, not necessarily famous. Our calling is measured by obedience, by love, not by applause.
Exactly. And in practical terms, this whole deep dive kind of invites you, the listener, to ask yourself some pretty personal questions like, am I really seeking God's glory? Or am I deep down seeking my own? Am I more concerned with my character development or with growing my platform? God invites us to just abide, stay connected to Christ, and trust him for the fruit. Because, as the sources keep saying, flashy success can fade, true fruit remains. It's actually a really liberating call, isn't it, to redirect our energy toward what truly lasts.
Yeah, liberating is a good word for it. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's maybe a final thought to chew on. In your own life, right now, how do you really measure what matters most? Is it the external stuff, the applause, the recognition, or is it the quiet, lasting fruit of character and faithfulness that maybe only God sees?
Our sources definitely encourage that kind of personal reflection. Maybe consider a few steps. First, reflect. Just take some quiet time, maybe pray. Ask yourself honestly, where am I finding my value? Am I chasing God's approval or my own applause? Second, share. Maybe talk about this with someone you trust, a friend, mentor, small group. Share your own struggles or thoughts about what success means to you. Third, pray. Ask the Holy Spirit to grow that character, that lasting fruit in you love, joy, peace, patience. Pray for humility. And fourth, maybe journal. Think about one specific concrete way you could try to bear fruit this week. Maybe serving someone quietly, sharing your faith gently, or just focusing on that deeper connection with Christ.
Thank you so much for joining us on the deep dive. We really hope this discussion inspires you to perhaps seek a different kind of success. One focused not on fleeting fame, but on that lasting, deeper fruitfulness. Until next time, keep exploring, keep abiding, and embrace that peace that comes from a truly fruitful life.